The rain had just stopped when Adrian Miller looked at his reflection in the mirror. 27 years old, the heir of a successful construction empire in New York, and a man who had everything money could buy. Everything except certainty and love. He wasn't supposed to have 3 fiancées. It wasn't in his nature to play with hearts. But life had pushed him into complicated relationships, each one sealed with promises that felt real. At least at the time. His father used to say, "A man can win the world, but if he loses trust in love, he loses himself." Adrian never understood those words until now. Fiancée number 1, Isabella Carter. The first engagement was arranged. Isabella came from an old money family. She was graceful, elegant, and ambitious. When Adrian met her at a charity gala, her hand slipped into his with practiced ease. The cameras loved them. Society whispered that they were the perfect couple. But Adrian often wondered if she loved him or the empire behind his name. Isabella always smiled when he bought her diamonds, but her eyes turned cold when he spoke about dreams instead of business. Still, their engagement was celebrated like a royal union, and Adrian, blinded by family expectations, convinced himself it was love. Fiancée number 2, Claire Matthews. Claire was different. She was his college sweetheart, the girl who taught him how to laugh in crowded cafeterias and kissed him under library ceilings. She wasn't born rich. She worked part-time while studying, her hands roughened from labor, her eyes burning with ambition. Adrian loved her fire. After graduation, when he slid the ring on her finger, he believed it was forever. Claire whispered, "It doesn't matter if you lose everything. I'll still be here." But years later, he wasn't sure if those words still held truth. Fiancée number 3, Vanessa Green. And then there was Vanessa, a model, the kind of woman men turned their heads for. She entered his life like lightning fast, thrilling, and impossible to ignore. With her, every night felt like a dream, a blur of passion and reckless laughter. Adrian knew she wasn't wife material, not in the traditional sense. But there was something magnetic about her, something that made him feel alive after long, cold days. One drunken night led to a whirlwind romance, and before he knew it, he had slipped another diamond onto another finger. Now, standing in front of the mirror, Adrian asked himself, how the hell did I end up with 3 fiancées? It wasn't greed. It wasn't playboy arrogance. It was something more tragic fear. Fear of losing love, fear of disappointing people, fear of being truly alone. But soon he was going to learn that the women he trusted the most would betray him in ways he never imagined. The mansion's grand hall buzzed with voices, the crystal chandeliers scattering light over polished marble floors. Tonight was supposed to be a private dinner, but somehow it had turned into a stage one where Adrian's complicated life threatened to unravel. His mother had invited Isabella, Claire, and Vanessa together. Adrian nearly choked when he saw all 3 women walking in, dressed like queens ready for battle. "Adrian, darling," Isabella greeted first, her voice silky smooth, her red gown matching her lipstick. She pressed a kiss to his cheek, her perfume clinging to him like ownership. "You look, tired. Have you been working too hard again?" Before he could answer, Claire stepped forward. Simpler dress, softer smile, but sharper eyes. She ignored Isabella and looked only at Adrian. "You didn't tell me she would be here." And then came Vanessa. She smirked, flipping her dark hair back as she strolled in like she owned the place. "Relax, sweethearts. He's mine tonight anyway." The tension was so thick Adrian felt suffocated. His mother, oblivious to the storm she had unleashed, raised her glass and said, "To Adrian Miller, the man who has everything." Everything. The words stung. Later, when the dinner ended, Adrian escaped to the balcony for air. The city stretched before him, a million lights flickering like false promises. Isabella appeared first, slipping her arm through his. "You know what people expect of us," she whispered. "Together we'll be unstoppable. All you have to do is trust me." When she left, Claire arrived. Her eyes were pleading. "Adrian, I don't care about wealth or fame. I care about you. But lately, I feel like I'm losing you." And finally Vanessa joined him, leaning against the railing, eyes glinting with mischief. You're too serious, baby. Forget them. Forget everyone. You and me, we could run away tonight. Leave this mess behind. 3 women. 3 promises. 3 futures. Adrian's chest tightened. He wanted to believe them all. He wanted to believe in love. But deep down, a voice whispered that something was wrong, terribly wrong. And soon he would find out that each of these women carried secrets sharp enough to shatter his world. The following week, Adrian buried himself in work. Meetings, contracts, endless calls, anything to distract his mind from the impossible triangle he was stuck in. Yet, no matter how busy he became, each woman found a way to intrude into his life. The whisper of doubt, Isabella. One afternoon, Adrian returned early to his office only to find Isabella already there, sitting at his desk with a glass of champagne. "You weren't supposed to be here," he said, frowning. She smiled sweetly, crossing her legs. "I was waiting for you." "Don't worry, your secretary knows me well enough by now." Adrian sat down opposite her. "What do you want, Isabella?" Her eyes sharpened, the smile fading into something colder. "What I've always wanted? Adrian, security, wealth, a future where the Miller name stays powerful and where I am at your side. But if you hesitate, there are others who would gladly offer me that future." Her words pricked like needles. Others? Did she already have another man waiting in the shadows? Before he could ask, she leaned closer, kissed his cheek, and whispered, "Think carefully, darling. I don't wait forever." And just like that, she left, leaving Adrian with a gnawing suspicion that Isabella's love was conditional, calculated. The fading flame, Claire. That evening, Claire invited Adrian to a quiet cafe where they used to study in their college days. She wore no makeup, just her natural smile, the one that once made him believe in forever. "Do you remember?" she asked, pointing to the corner table. "You used to sit there and sketch business plans on napkins." Adrian smiled faintly. "And you used to steal my fries when you thought I wasn't looking?" For a moment, it felt like the old days. But then Claire's tone shifted. "Adrian, do you still love me?" He blinked. "Of course I do." Her eyes shimmered with doubt. "Then why do I feel like I'm competing with ghosts?" "You promised me I'd never have to prove myself to you. But lately it's like you don't trust me. Like I'm not enough." Adrian reached for her hand, but she pulled away. Her phone buzzed on the table. She quickly silenced it, but not before he noticed the name flashing across the screen. Ethan. His chest tightened. "Who's Ethan?" Claire froze. For a heartbeat too long, she didn't answer. Then she forced a smile. "Just a friend from work." But Adrian's gut twisted. Something about the way she avoided his eyes told him Ethan wasn't just a friend. The temptation, Vanessa. 2 nights later, Vanessa dragged him to a private rooftop party in Manhattan. The music was loud, the drinks endless, and the people dazzling. She danced like fire, pulling him close, whispering against his lips, "Forget your problems. Just live with me." No rules, no rings, no responsibilities. But as he watched her move from man to man, laughing too freely, touching too easily, Adrian's heart sank. He wasn't the only one she charmed tonight. When he confronted her, she shrugged. "Baby, don't be jealous. You know, I just love the spotlight. You're still my favorite. Favorite, not only. Not beloved, just favorite." Adrian lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, his mind torn apart by doubts. Isabella wanted power. Claire was hiding something. Vanessa craved freedom more than love. And yet, each one wore his ring. His father's voice echoed again. "If love feels like chains, it isn't love. It's a prison." Adrian didn't know it yet, but the first betrayal was already unfolding closer than he imagined. Saturday night. The Miller estate glowed with golden lights, ready to host a private charity dinner. Adrian moved through the crowd politely, but his mind was elsewhere, haunted by Isabella's threats, Claire's mysterious Ethan, and Vanessa's recklessness. Then, halfway through the evening, fate struck its first blow. A glimpse of truth. Adrian stepped out into the garden for some quiet when he heard laughter. Familiar laughter, Isabella's. He followed the sound through the hedges until he reached a secluded corner. There she was, Isabella Carter. In her crimson gown, her arms wrapped around a tall man in a navy suit. His lips brushed her neck as she whispered, "Don't worry. He won't suspect a thing." Adrian is too busy playing the perfect fiancé. The world tilted. Adrian's chest went cold, his breath trapped in his throat. The man chuckled, tightening his grip on her waist. "And once his company merges with yours, you'll leave him for good?" "Of course," Isabella purred. "Love is a luxury, darling. I prefer security. And Adrian is nothing but a stepping stone." Adrian staggered back, his heart shattering like glass. The confrontation. He didn't wait. He stormed forward, his voice like thunder. "Isabella!" She jerked away from the man, her face pale. "Adrian, I can explain." "Explain what?" Adrian's voice trembled with rage. "That you've been using me? That this entire engagement was just a business move." The man raised his hands mockingly. "Relax, Miller. It's just business. Nothing personal." Adrian's fists clenched, but he held himself back. His father's words rang in his ears again. A man who loses control loses the war. So instead of violence, he slipped the engagement ring from his pocket. The same ring Isabella flaunted so proudly, and tossed it at her feet. "It's over," he said, his voice breaking. "You were never mine? You were never even real?" Isabella bent down slowly, her face twisting between anger and fear. "Adrian, don't be foolish. Without me, you'll be left behind in this city. Think carefully." But Adrian turned his back and walked away, leaving her and her lover frozen in the shadows. The silent drive. That night, Adrian drove aimlessly through the rain-slick streets of Manhattan. The city blurred around him, neon lights cutting through the darkness. He gripped the steering wheel tighter than ever before, fighting the storm inside his chest. One fiancé down, two left. But as he replayed Isabella's betrayal in his mind, he couldn't ignore the gnawing suspicion that Claire and Vanessa were hiding secrets too. His father's old warning returned, heavier than ever. Trust can build an empire, Adrian. But betrayal can destroy even the strongest man, and Adrian was about to discover just how true those words were. The Monday after Isabella's betrayal, Adrian sat in his office staring at the skyline of New York. The morning sun gleamed off the skyscrapers, but his world felt gray. He had broken off the engagement with Isabella. The tabloids would soon devour the scandal. Adrian Miller dumps socialite fiancé was probably already trending online. His PR team begged him for a statement, but Adrian remained silent. He wasn't afraid of the press. He was afraid of what came next, because he still had two fiancés left, and trust was already slipping through his fingers. Claire's call. His phone buzzed. It was Claire. "Adrian, can we meet tonight?" Her voice was softer than usual, almost nervous. He hesitated. He hadn't forgotten the name. He'd seen flashing on her phone. Ethan. But he couldn't accuse her without proof. "Yes," he said finally. "Dinner 7 o'clock. The dinner that changed everything." That evening they met at an intimate Italian restaurant downtown. Claire looked beautiful but different, her hair pinned neatly, her makeup understated. She seemed tense, her hands trembling slightly as she reached for her glass of wine. "You're quiet," she said after a while. "I've had a lot on my mind," Adrian admitted. "Isabella?" He gave a bitter laugh. "You heard already?" "Everyone has," she said softly. "I'm sorry, Adrian. I always worried she wasn't right for you." Her sympathy should have comforted him, but it didn't. Not when her phone buzzed again. Lighting up with the same name, Ethan? Adrian's jaw tightened. "Who is he, Claire?" She froze. For a moment she looked like she might lie, but then she sighed and set her phone on the table. "He's a colleague. We've been working late on a project. He calls a lot, yes. But Adrian, I swear there's nothing going on." Her voice trembled with sincerity. And yet, Adrian felt the weight of doubt pressing harder. A chance encounter. After dinner, Claire excused herself to take a work call. Adrian stepped outside for air. That's when he saw him. A man in a navy coat standing by a black car, phone pressed to his ear. Tall, confident, with the kind of presence that couldn't be ignored. And as Claire walked up to him moments later, Adrian's chest turned to stone. She didn't see Adrian watching from the shadows. She smiled at Ethan in a way she hadn't smiled at Adrian all night. Ethan touched her arm lightly and she didn't pull away. Adrian's heart pounded. He forced himself to stay still, to listen. Claire's voice drifted through the night air. I told him I'm with you on the project. He suspects something, but I can handle it. Ethan smirked. Good, we'll keep it quiet for now. He doesn't need to know everything. Adrian staggered back, his breath ragged. His worst fear was becoming real. First Isabella, now Claire. The second mask was falling. Adrian barely slept that night. He replayed every moment from the restaurant, Claire's trembling hands, Ethan's confident smile, her whispered words. He doesn't need to know everything. By morning, his doubt had hardened into determination. He needed answers. The confrontation. The next evening, Adrian went to Claire's apartment unannounced. She looked startled when she opened the door. Adrian, you didn't call? Because you wouldn't have answered, he cut in, his tone sharper than he intended. We need to talk. She stepped aside reluctantly. The apartment was small but warm, filled with photographs of their college days. Memories that once felt sweet now tasted bitter. Who is Ethan to you, really? Adrian demanded. Claire's face drained of color. I told you. Don't lie to me. His voice cracked, filled with hurt more than anger. I saw you with him. I heard you. He doesn't need to know everything. What is it I don't need to know, Claire? Tears welled in her eyes. For a long moment she said nothing. Then, with a shuddering breath, the truth spilled out. The secret. Ethan, was there when you weren't, she whispered. You were buried in your company, your deals, your endless meetings. I was alone, Adrian. I waited for you, I begged for your time, but you gave me nothing but excuses. And then Ethan came along. He listened. He cared. He made me feel alive again. Her voice cracked, tears rolling down her cheeks. I didn't plan for it to happen. I didn't want it to. But somewhere along the way, I fell for him. The words struck like daggers. Adrian's chest tightened until he could barely breathe. So all those promises? He asked, his voice hollow. All those nights you said I was enough for you? Lies? Claire shook her head desperately. Not lies. I did love you, Adrian. A part of me still does. But love isn't enough when you're not really here. The breaking point. Adrian's hands trembled. He wanted to scream, to demand she choose him, to beg her not to let go. But pride, pain, and betrayal chained his tongue. Slowly, he slipped the engagement ring from her finger and closed his hand around it. His voice was barely a whisper. You were supposed to be my forever. Claire sobbed, reaching for him, but he stepped back. Goodbye, Claire. And with that he walked out, leaving behind the shattered remains of a love he thought would last a lifetime. Alone again, that night Adrian stood on his balcony overlooking the city, the cold wind cutting through him. First Isabella, now Claire. 2 fiancées. 2 betrayals. Only Vanessa remained, the wild, untamed storm of his life. Could he trust her? Or was she hiding her own knife, waiting for the perfect moment to strike? Adrian clenched his fists, his heart raw and bleeding. He was determined now. He would uncover the truth whatever it cost him. Adrian spent the next few days drowning himself in work. Every contract, every negotiation became a shield against the pain clawing at his chest. But grief has a way of leaking through even the strongest armor. At night he would stare at the empty glass of bourbon in his hand and wonder if love was nothing but a cruel illusion. Vanessa's arrival. One evening, just as he was about to leave his office, Vanessa stormed in. She was breathtaking as always, dressed in a black leather jacket, her hair wild, her lips curved into a mischievous smile. You've been avoiding me, she said, shutting the door behind her. I've been busy, Adrian muttered, gathering his files. Busy crying over the Ice Queen and the girl next door? She teased, sliding onto his desk. Adrian froze. You know? Vanessa smirked. Everyone knows. Manhattan feeds on gossip. Isabella ran back to her rich lover and Claire. Sweet Claire. She's already been spotted with Ethan. Brutal, huh? Her words were sharp, but her tone was oddly gentle. She reached out, touching his chin. Forget them. They were never right for you. Me? I don't need your money, your empire, or your promises. I just want you. The temptation. She leaned closer, her perfume intoxicating, her lips inches from his. For a moment, Adrian almost gave in. He wanted to drown in her fire, to burn away the cold left by betrayal. But then he remembered Isabella's deceitful whisper, Claire's trembling confession. He pulled back. What do you want from me, Vanessa? Really? Her eyes glittered. Freedom, adventure, passion. With you, I can have it all. Adrian frowned. And when it's gone? When the fire dies? Vanessa laughed, a sound both beautiful and dangerous. Then we'll light another match. That's life, baby. The shadow of doubt. Later that night, Adrian attended a gala with Vanessa on his arm. She dazzled the crowd, laughing loudly, sipping champagne, dancing with abandon. For a while, he let himself enjoy the chaos she brought. But then he saw it, the way she disappeared to the balcony with another man, whispering in his ear, her hand lingering too long on his chest. Jealousy clawed at Adrian's throat. He stormed out to confront her, but by the time he reached the balcony, she was gone. The man stood there alone, smirking knowingly. Careful, Miller, the stranger said. Vanessa doesn't belong to anyone. Not even you. The breaking storm. Adrian left the gala early, Vanessa trailing behind him in their limousine. She laughed off his silence, resting her head on his shoulder as if nothing had happened. But inside, Adrian's heart was crumbling. Isabella had betrayed him for power. Claire had betrayed him for love. And Vanessa. He didn't know yet, but the cracks were forming and he could feel the storm building. The following week felt like a blur for Adrian. Every time Vanessa called or showed up, he forced himself to smile. But inside, suspicion gnawed at him like a parasite. He could no longer ignore the whispers, the lingering touches she shared with strangers, the way her phone lit up late at night with names he didn't recognize. Come with me to Miami, Vanessa said one afternoon, her eyes glinting with excitement. Just you and me. Sunshine, cocktails, no past, no pain. You need this, Adrian. Reluctantly, he agreed. Maybe this was the escape he needed. The first 2 days were perfect long walks by the beach, stolen kisses under the stars, Vanessa pulling him into her whirlwind of passion. For a moment, Adrian began to hope. Maybe she really was different. But on the third night, everything shattered. Adrian returned to their hotel suite, earlier than expected, after a late meeting with a business partner. The door was ajar. Music played faintly inside. At first, he thought Vanessa had drawn a bath for them. But when he stepped into the room, his heart froze. Vanessa was in the arms of another man. Their laughter filled the air as she whispered against his lips words Adrian had once believed were meant only for him. The glass in Adrian's hand slipped and shattered on the floor. Vanessa whipped around, her face pale. Adrian, this isn't... But her excuses died on her tongue. The truth was painted across the room, undeniable. Adrian's voice was calm, too calm. 3 fiancés, 3 betrayals. Congratulations, Vanessa. You've completed the set. The man slipped out awkwardly, leaving them alone. Vanessa reached for Adrian, tears streaking her cheeks. You don't understand? I didn't mean... Save it, Adrian snapped, his chest heaving. I gave Isabella my trust, Claire my heart, and you had my hope. And all 3 of you destroyed me. Adrian pulled the 3rd engagement ring from his pocket, the one meant for Vanessa. Slowly, he placed it on the table between them. I was going to propose tonight, he said bitterly. But I guess you saved me the humiliation, Vanessa sobbed, falling to her knees. I love you, Adrian. Please believe me, I'm reckless, I'm selfish, but I do love you. He shook his head. Love isn't selfish? Love doesn't betray? Without another word, he turned and walked out, the sound of her cries echoing behind him. The aftermath. Back in Manhattan, Adrian stood in his penthouse, staring out at the city lights. 3 women. 3 broken promises. 3 shattered dreams. For the first time, he felt truly alone. The empire he had built meant nothing. The wealth, the influence, none of it filled the hollow ache inside his chest. And yet, somewhere deep down, a quiet voice whispered, maybe betrayal was the price he had to pay to find the one who truly loved him. Adrian didn't know who that person was or if they even existed. But he swore one thing to himself. He would not let these scars destroy him. He would rise stronger, wiser, and one day, maybe, just maybe, he would find a love that would not betray. Adrian's penthouse had never felt so empty. No echo of laughter, no warmth of a shared presence, just silence and the faint hum of the city outside. He had everything a man could want, a thriving empire, a skyline view, luxury beyond measure. Yet he had lost the very thing he craved most, loyalty. For days he locked himself away. Calls went unanswered, meetings postponed. Even his closest friends stopped trying. But then came a knock. The visit. When Adrian opened the door, he found Emily, his longtime secretary, standing nervously with a small paper bag in her hands. She was in her late 20s, soft-spoken, with kind eyes hidden behind glasses. "Sir," she said hesitantly, "you haven't been in the office for a week. The team is worried and, She lifted the bag. "I brought you soup? You probably haven't eaten properly." Adrian blinked, stunned. In all his years, no one had come to check on him without expecting something in return. Isabella, Claire, Vanessa, they had all taken pieces of him. But Emily? She had never asked for more than her paycheck. "Emily, you didn't have to," he said quietly. Her smile was small but genuine. "I know, but I wanted to. A different kind of comfort." They sat together at his kitchen counter. Emily insisted he eat, scolding him lightly when he pushed the food around without appetite. "You worked yourself into the ground, Mr. Miller," she said. "And now you're letting grief do the same. That's not strength, it's surrender." Adrian studied her, surprised at her boldness. Emily rarely spoke more than necessary in the office. Yet here she was, calling him out without fear. For the first time in weeks, he chuckled softly. "You're braver than you look, and you're more fragile than you pretend," she replied, meeting his gaze steadily. Something stirred in Adrian's chest. Not passion, not desire, something quieter, steadier. Something he hadn't felt in a very long time. Peace. The revelation. Before leaving, Emily hesitated at the door. "Sir Adrian, I know it's not my place, but not everyone betrays? Some of us stay, even if you never notice." Her words lingered long after she was gone. That night, as Adrian stood by the window, he realized something. He had spent so long chasing love and dazzling, glittering packages, Isabella's power, Claire's warmth, Vanessa's fire, that he had overlooked the quiet loyalty that had been beside him all along. For the first time, hope flickered. Maybe love didn't come from the ones who dazzled you. Maybe it came from the ones who stayed when the world fell apart. Adrian returned to the office the next morning for the first time in weeks. The usual chatter fell silent as soon as he entered. Employees exchanged nervous glances, wondering what version of their boss had walked through the doors, the ruthless CEO or the broken man who had disappeared. But instead of icy commands, Adrian simply nodded at his staff. "Thank you for holding things together." His eyes lingered on Emily as she handed him his schedule. She looked the same as always, neat blouse, tidy hair, calm demeanor. Yet something about her seemed different now. Or maybe, for the first time, he was truly seeing her. An unfamiliar warmth. Later that day, Adrian caught Emily humming softly while organizing his files. It was a tune his mother used to hum when he was a child. The sound tugged at something deep inside him. "Emily," he said suddenly, "why do you stay?" She looked up, startled. "Stay? You've seen me at my worst. You've watched 3 engagements crash and burn. You could work anywhere. So why stay with me?" Emily's cheeks flushed, but her voice was steady. "Because you're not just a boss to me. You're a man who works harder than anyone, who carries the weight of an empire alone, who deserves someone in his corner. And if you can't see your worth, then someone has to remind you." Adrian felt his throat tighten. No grand declarations. No conditions. Just simple truth. The unexpected return. That evening, as Adrian prepared to leave, his phone buzzed with a message that froze his blood. "We need to talk. Meet me at the cafe on 5th, it's important." The sender, Claire. Against his better judgment, he went. The cafe was nearly empty, the dim light casting long shadows. Claire sat at a corner table, her eyes red-rimmed as if she'd been crying for days. "Adrian," she whispered, rising to meet him. "Thank you for coming." His jaw tightened. "Make it quick." Claire's lips trembled. "Ethan, he left me. He used me, Adrian. And when I tried to fight back, he threatened to destroy me. I made a mistake. The biggest mistake of my life." Her hand reached for his. "Please, give me another chance. I swear I'll prove my love." The crossroads. Adrian stared at her, emotions warring inside him. Once, he would have given anything to hear those words. Once, he would have forgiven, begged, and welcomed her back. But now, he thought of Emily, the soup she had brought, the way she had scolded him, the way she had stayed without demanding anything in return. For the first time, Adrian realized he stood at a crossroads, not between three fiancées who betrayed him, but between his past and a future that might finally hold something real. Adrian couldn't sleep after meeting Claire. Her tear-streaked face haunted him, her pleas echoing in his mind. But every time guilt tempted him to forgive. He remembered the look in Emily's eyes when she had said, "Not everyone betrays." The next day, as fate would have it, the two women's paths collided. The encounter. Emily was leaving Adrian's office with a stack of files when the elevator doors opened. Claire stepped out, dressed in a simple coat, her once radiant confidence dimmed. Their eyes met instantly. "Emily," Claire said softly, almost cautiously. "Claire," Emily replied, her tone polite but distant. She had seen the tabloid photos, the whispered scandals. She knew exactly what Claire had done. Claire's gaze flickered toward Adrian's door. "Is he inside?" Emily shifted the files in her arms. "Yes, but he's busy." Claire bit her lip. "Please, just tell him I came. I need to explain." Emily studied her for a long moment, her instinct torn between empathy and protection. Finally, she nodded. "I'll let him know." Inside the office, when Emily returned, Adrian immediately noticed her unsettled expression. "What happened?" he asked. "Claire was here," Emily said carefully. "She wants to see you." Adrian leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. The weight of his past pressed against his chest. "And what do you think I should do?" Emily hesitated. Normally, she never gave personal advice on his private life. But this time, she couldn't stop herself. "I think," she said slowly, "you deserve peace. And peace doesn't come from reopening old wounds." Her words were gentle, but firm. Adrian's heart tightened. Emily wasn't trying to sway him for her benefit. She was trying to protect him. Claire's desperation. That night, Adrian received another message. This time, Claire wasn't begging. She was warning. "If you don't meet me, Adrian, Ethan will destroy both of us. Please, I need your help." Adrian's grip on the phone tightened. Claire had hurt him, yes. But if Ethan truly was threatening her, could he turn his back completely? And more importantly, what would Emily think if she knew he was considering helping the woman who betrayed him? The silent realization. As Adrian sat by his window, city lights glowing beneath him, he realized something startling. With Isabella, he had felt awe. With Claire, he had felt warmth. With Vanessa, he had felt fire. But with Emily, he felt safe. And that, perhaps, was worth more than all the others combined. Adrian sat in his car outside the quiet cafe, staring at the glowing sign. Claire had chosen the same place where she once confessed her betrayal. Maybe it was irony, maybe it was guilt. Either way, he had come. The secret meeting. Claire was already there, nervously stirring her untouched coffee. Her eyes lit up when she saw him, but the spark quickly faded when she read the coldness in his gaze. "Adrian," she whispered, "thank you for coming. I know you hate me, but—" "I don't hate you," he cut in. "But I don't trust you either. Say what you came to say." Claire swallowed hard. "Ethan isn't who he seems. He's dangerous. He used me to get closer to you, to your company, your wealth. And when I tried to leave, he threatened me. He said if I didn't keep feeding him information, he'd ruin me. And you? Adrian leaned back, skeptical but listening. And why should I believe you now? You've already lied once. Because this time, Claire said desperately, sliding a folder across the table. I can prove it. Inside were documents, emails, bank transfers, even photos linking Ethan to a rival corporation known for hostile takeovers. Adrian's jaw tightened. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. This was business warfare. Emily's discovery. While Adrian sat with Claire, Emily was still at the office, finishing up paperwork he had left behind. She noticed his briefcase missing and a single note on his desk. Don't wait up. Her heart sank. She had seen that look in his eyes earlier, the same look he wore before he forgave too easily, before he let himself be broken again. Against her better judgment, Emily called his driver. Where did Mr. Miller go tonight? She asked softly. There was hesitation before the driver answered. Café on 5th. Emily closed her eyes. Claire, of course. Confrontation. When Adrian stepped out of the café, folder in hand, he nearly collided with Emily. She stood on the sidewalk, her face pale but resolute. Emily? His chest tightened. Her eyes flicked to the folder, then to the café behind him. You went back to her. Adrian opened his mouth, but no words came. For once, the man who always had the perfect defense, the perfect argument, was silent. Emily's voice shook, not with anger, but with quiet disappointment. I thought you were done letting broken promises control you. I thought you wanted peace. Emily, listen. No, she said firmly. You don't owe me an explanation. I'm just your secretary, right? But I can't stand by and watch you fall into the same trap again. Her eyes glistened, and before Adrian could stop her, she walked away, disappearing into the night. The crossroad deepens. Adrian stood frozen, torn between two worlds. One Claire, holding dangerous secrets that could save or destroy him. The other Emily, the quiet strength he was only beginning to understand. For the first time, Adrian realized he wasn't just fighting betrayal anymore. He was fighting for his future. The morning after Emily walked away, Adrian sat in his office, staring at the folder Claire had given him. Emails, contracts, forged documents, every page confirmed the same truth. Ethan wasn't just a rival in love. He was a predator circling Adrian's empire, waiting for the right moment to strike. And now Adrian had proof. But proof alone wasn't enough. The boardroom tension. That afternoon, Adrian gathered his board of directors. The men and women who had built Miller Enterprises with him now shifted uneasily in their seats, sensing the storm brewing. Adrian placed the folder on the long table. Ethan Grant is attempting a hostile takeover. He's been using inside information. Someone close to me betrayed my trust and gave him access. Whispers filled the room. A few directors looked at each other nervously. Do you have evidence? One asked. Adrian's voice was steel. I have enough to bury him. The unseen blow, but even as Adrian planned his counterattack, Ethan struck first. That evening, news broke across every financial channel. Scandal at Miller Enterprises, CEO accused of fraudulent deals, leaked documents doctored but convincing painted Adrian as corrupt. Within hours, stock prices plummeted. Investors demanded answers. The empire he had built teetered on the edge of collapse. Adrian slammed his fists against his desk. Damn it! Whoever Ethan had on the inside wasn't just feeding him scraps. They were handing him weapons. Claire's plea. Claire called him in tears. Adrian, I warned you. He's not going to stop until he destroys you. Let me help, please. I know how he thinks. I know his next moves. Adrian's jaw clenched. Why should I trust you? You already handed him everything once? I know, Claire whispered, broken. But this time I want to make it right. Let me fix what I destroyed. Emily's silence. Meanwhile, Emily hadn't spoken to Adrian since that night outside the cafe. She answered his calls with short replies, kept her distance at the office, her eyes avoiding his. But Adrian noticed something. When the scandal broke, Emily stayed late, quietly cleaning up the chaos, making calls to investors, reassuring employees. She didn't say it, but she was still fighting for him. and Adrian couldn't shake the thought. Claire says she can save me. Emily already is. The next evening, Ethan sat in his car, outside the upscale hotel where Layla had told him. She had a business dinner. He hadn't planned to spy. He hated the idea of sneaking around like a jealous lover. But after everything that had happened with Claire and Emma, doubt had sunk its claws deep into his mind. He told himself he just wanted peace of mind. He just wanted to confirm that he could trust at least one of the women he had once believed in. Through the windshield, he saw Lila stepping out of a cab. She wore a silky red dress that clung to her frame and glittered under the streetlights. His heart swelled with pride and longing at the sight of her. She was breathtaking, and for a moment, Ethan wondered if he was being paranoid. But then a man stepped out of the hotel lobby. Older, broad-shouldered, with an expensive suit and a self-assured smile. He leaned down and kissed Lila on the cheek, too intimately to be businesslike. Layla laughed, looping her arm around his as they walked inside together. Ethan's stomach clenched. For 20 minutes he sat frozen, staring at the entrance, his hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. His heart hammered in his chest as rage and disbelief tangled inside him. Finally, he got out of the car and went inside. The restaurant was dimly lit, full of polished wood, crystal glasses, and quiet jazz. Ethan spotted them instantly, Leela and the man at a private corner table. She leaned close, her laughter soft and flirtatious. He whispered something in her ear that made her touch his hand in a way Ethan had thought was reserved only for him. His vision blurred with betrayal. He walked over before he could stop himself. The sound of his footsteps made Lila glance up. Her smile froze when she saw him standing there. Ethan. Her voice faltered, panic flashing in her eyes. The man looked up too, brows raised in mild annoyance. And you are? I'm her fiancé, Ethan said, his voice steady but cold. The words seemed to hang in the air like a blade. Several nearby diners looked over curiously. The man's eyes narrowed, then flicked toward Lila. Fiancé? You told me you were single. Ethan's chest heaved, his pulse thundering in his ears. So it's true. All this time. Ethan, please, I can explain. Lila reached for him, but he stepped back, his expression carved from stone. There's nothing left to explain, his voice broke, but he forced himself to meet her gaze. First Claire, then Emma, and now you. All of you. Layla's face crumpled with guilt, but he didn't stay to hear her excuses. He turned and walked out of the restaurant, each step heavier than the last. His chest felt hollow, his world collapsing for the third time. That night, Ethan sat alone in his apartment, staring at the engagement ring he had once planned to give. Leela, his hands shook as he placed it back into the small velvet box. Then he shoved it into the drawer with the others, symbols of promises that had shattered into dust. Tears burned his eyes, but he refused to let them fall. His heart was broken, yes, but beneath the heartbreak, something else stirred, a fierce determination. If love could betray him 3 times, then maybe it wasn't love he needed to seek. Maybe it was the truth. Maybe it was time to uncover why fate kept leading him to women who only knew how to hurt him. And maybe, just maybe, somewhere out there was someone who would prove that real love wasn't just a cruel illusion. The city was alive as always. Neon lights flashing, cars honking, laughter spilling out of bars and cafes. But to Ethan, it all felt strangely distant, like he was walking through someone else's dream. He wandered aimlessly through the streets, hands buried in his jacket pockets, his heart heavy with a weight that words could never quite capture. 3 rings sat in his apartment drawer, mocking him with their silence. 3 betrayals had carved scars so deep he wondered if they would ever heal. He had once believed in love. Fiercely, unconditionally, he had built his future around it, around the promise of partnership, loyalty, and trust. But now, all that was left was doubt. Doubt in others, doubt in himself. Maybe it's me, he muttered, under his breath as he paused by a park bench and sat down, staring at the empty playground across the street. Maybe I'm the common denominator in all of this. Maybe I'm unlovable. The thought twisted like a knife. For days, Ethan withdrew from the world. He ignored calls, skipped work, and shut his blinds to block out the sunlight. The once neatly arranged apartment turned into chaos. Pizza boxes stacked on the counter, unopened letters scattered on the coffee table, clothes thrown across the couch. He barely ate. He barely slept. Every night, memories haunted him. Claire's laughter with Ethan, the other man. Emma's lies on the phone, Layla's guilty eyes at the restaurant. They played in an endless loop until he thought he might lose his mind. But the worst part wasn't the betrayals themselves. It was the silence afterward. The emptiness. The way he suddenly had no one to call when his chest felt too tight or when nightmares jolted him awake. The loneliness was suffocating. One evening, as he stared blankly at the city skyline from his balcony, his phone buzzed. For a moment he didn't care, but then he noticed the name on the screen. Maya. He frowned. Maya wasn't one of his fiancées. She wasn't even part of his close circle. She was different. A quiet presence from his past, someone he had once considered a friend, but never truly pursued because life had pulled them in different directions. He hesitated, thumb hovering over the screen. A part of him wanted to ignore it. Another part, the part that was desperate for any thread of connection, pressed accept. Ethan? Her voice was soft, careful, almost as if she knew how fragile he was. Yeah, he said, his throat dry. I heard about everything, she said after a pause. Are you okay? Ethan let out a bitter laugh. Define okay. There was silence on the line, but not the heavy kind he'd grown used to. The silence was gentle, patient. Finally, she said, Do you want to talk? And for the first time in weeks, Ethan felt the faintest flicker of warmth in the darkness. The next afternoon, Ethan found himself sitting across from Maya in a small cafe, tucked away on a quiet street. He hadn't meant to agree when she asked to meet, but somehow, when her message had popped up, he couldn't bring himself to say no. Maya looked almost exactly as he remembered, simple yet graceful. Her long hair tied back, no heavy makeup, just that calm presence that had always set her apart. While others chased attention, Maya had always been content in the background. You've changed, she said softly. Studying him with those steady eyes, Ethan gave a dry smile. 3 broken engagements will do that to a guy. Maya winced at his tone, but she didn't try to give him platitudes or false hope. Instead, she just nodded, as if acknowledging his pain without judgment. That, more than anything, loosened the knot in his chest. They talked not about the betrayals. Not in detail. Maya asked about his work, his hobbies, the little things, and Ethan realized just how much he had missed normal conversations. No drama, no lies, no hidden agendas, just words, just presence. When he walked her back to her car, she paused before getting in. Ethan, she said, her voice quiet but firm, don't let what they did convince you that you're not worthy of love. Because you are, you always were. The words hit him harder than he expected. For weeks, he had drowned in self-blame. But hearing her say that, with no hesitation, no agenda, was like a lifeline thrown into stormy waters. That night, Ethan couldn't stop thinking about her, about how different it had felt to sit across from someone who didn't want anything from him except his company, about how she had listened without pressing, about the way she had looked at him, not as a broken man, but as someone still whole. For the first time in what felt like forever, Ethan slept without nightmares. Days turned into weeks, and Maya slowly became a constant. She didn't push herself into his life. She didn't demand or expect. She simply showed up. Sometimes it was a text to check in, sometimes a walk in the park, sometimes just sitting with him in silence. And little by little, Ethan began to feel lighter, but with that light came something else, fear, because if he let himself care again, if he let himself believe in love again, what if it broke him all over? One evening, as they sat by the river watching the city lights shimmer on the water, Maya turned to him. Do you ever think, she asked, that sometimes we break so we can finally see who's willing to help? You just put the pieces back together? Ethan met her gaze, and for the first time, he didn't look away, and in that moment, though he didn't say it out loud, he knew maybe his story wasn't over. Maybe, just maybe, it was only beginning again. Autumn had arrived in the city. The trees lining the streets had turned golden, their leaves drifting down like soft reminders that everything, even pain, eventually changes. Ethan walked alongside Maya through the park, their steps slow, unhurried. He realized he had stopped counting days since the betrayals. Before Maya, time had been a blur of loneliness and regret. But now, somehow, hours with her stretched, became vivid, memorable. "Do you ever think about starting over?" Maya asked, kicking at a pile of leaves. Ethan let out a small laugh. "Every single day. But the problem is, I don't know if I'm brave enough anymore." "You don't need to be brave," she replied, glancing at him with a smile. "You just need to be honest. With yourself, with the person you're with. That's harder than bravery." Her words lingered in his chest. Honesty, that was what had been missing with Claire, Emma, and Lila. Promises had been made, but none had been true. With Maya, though, there was no mask, no performance. Just raw, unfiltered truth. They stopped at a bench overlooking the lake. The water shimmered in the late afternoon light, and a gentle breeze carried the sound of laughter from children playing nearby. For the first time in months, Ethan didn't feel like an outsider looking in. He felt part of the world again. "Maya," he said after a long silence, "why are you here? I mean, after everything, after how broken I am, why do you bother?" She turned toward him, her expression steady but soft. "Because you're not broken, Ethan. You're hurt. There's a difference. Broken means you can't be whole again. Hurt means you just need time and care." Her voice wavered slightly, but her eyes didn't. "And I care. I always have." Ethan's breath caught. He wanted to believe her, but fear gnawed at him. "But what if I can't give back? What if I fail again?" "Then you fail," Maya said simply. "And we try again. That's what love is supposed to be. Not perfect. Just present." Something inside Ethan shifted. A warmth he hadn't dared to feel began to spread through his chest. And for the first time since his world had shattered, he let himself imagine a future that wasn't defined by betrayal. That night, when Ethan returned home, he opened the drawer where the 3 engagement rings lay in their boxes. He stared at them for a long time, then quietly closed the drawer. For the first time, they didn't feel like weights dragging him down. They just felt like the past. And maybe, just maybe, the past didn't have to define his tomorrow. A week later, Ethan invited Maya over for dinner. It was a simple gesture, nothing fancy, just pasta, a bottle of wine, and a playlist humming quietly in the background. But for him, it was monumental. He hadn't let anyone into his apartment since everything had fallen apart. Maya stepped inside, looking around. The place was tidier now. Ethan had slowly pulled himself out of the chaos. "It feels more like you again," she said warmly. Ethan smiled faintly, pouring her a glass of wine. "I'm trying." They ate, they talked, and as the night deepened, something shifted. The air between them grew quieter, heavier, filled with unspoken words. Ethan caught himself watching her laugh, noticing the way her eyes crinkled, the way she leaned forward when she was genuinely listening. When the plates were cleared, they ended up on the balcony. The city stretched before them, lights glittering like scattered stars. "Maya," Ethan began, his voice low, "can I tell you something I've been afraid to say?" She turned to him, her expression open. "Of course," he exhaled shakily, gripping the railing. "I don't know if I'm ready to love again. But when I'm with you, I feel like maybe I could be. And that terrifies me more than anything." Maya's eyes softened. She stepped closer, close enough that he could feel her warmth. "You don't need to be ready, Ethan. You just need to be real. That's all I ask. Don't give me promises. Give me you. As you are." Her words hit him like a gentle storm, breaking through walls he hadn't realized he was still holding up. Slowly, almost hesitantly, Ethan reached for her hand. She didn't pull away. Their fingers intertwined naturally, as if they had been waiting for this moment all along. For the first time in months, Ethan's chest didn't ache with betrayal or fear. Instead, it hummed with something new, fragile, but real. Hope. That night after Maya left, Ethan sat on his bed, staring at his hand where hers had been. He realized something. He wasn't in love yet, not fully. But for the first time in a long time, he wanted to be. And that was enough. The following weekend, Maya asked Ethan to join her at a small charity event she was volunteering for. It wasn't glamorous, just a community fundraiser for a local shelter. But Ethan hesitated. He had avoided crowds, avoided people ever since the betrayals. The thought of walking into a room full of strangers made his chest tighten. But when Maya looked at him with quiet encouragement, he found himself nodding. "Okay, I'll come." The hall was buzzing with laughter, music, and chatter. Ethan stuck close to Maya at first, uneasy, his nerves jangling with every new face. But Maya had a way of making people feel comfortable. She greeted everyone warmly, introduced Ethan without making it awkward, and never left his side for too long. Slowly he began to relax. He even laughed a little, surprised at himself. At one point, as he helped Maya carry boxes of supplies, she glanced at him and smiled. "See? You're better at this than you think." Ethan chuckled. "I'm only good at it because you're here." The words slipped out before he could stop them. Maya blinked, her cheeks warming, but she didn't look away. Later that evening, as the event wound down, Ethan found himself standing with Maya outside under the string lights. The night air was cool, carrying the faint scent of autumn leaves. "Maya," he said, his voice low, "I need to tell you something." Her brows lifted, waiting. "I don't know what the future holds, and I can't promise I won't mess up. But tonight, being here with you, I realized something." His throat tightened, but he pushed on. "You make me want to try again? To believe again." Maya's eyes glistened. She stepped closer, placing a hand gently on his cheek. "That's all I've ever wanted, Ethan, not perfection. Just you, as you are." For a heartbeat, time seemed to still. Then Ethan leaned in, and their lips met in a tentative, fragile kiss, not fiery, not desperate but healing. A kiss that whispered of new beginnings. When they pulled back, Ethan's chest felt lighter than it had in months. For the first time since the betrayals, he felt alive. Truly alive. That night, lying in bed, Ethan realized something. The story of his life was no longer about betrayal. It was about renewal, about the light that had found him in the darkness. And that light had a name, Maya. For weeks, Ethan and Maya's connection grew stronger. Their days filled with small moments, walks in the park, late-night calls, simple dinners. It wasn't the kind of love story written in headlines. It was quiet, steady, and real. But beneath the surface, Ethan's fears simmered. Every time Maya's phone buzzed, a flicker of suspicion gnawed at him. Every time she smiled at a message, he wondered if he was being naive again. He hated himself for it. One evening, Maya noticed. They were sitting on his couch, a movie playing in the background when she turned to him. "You're far away again," she said gently. Ethan sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I don't mean to be. It's just, I don't know how to stop waiting for the other shoe to drop. With Claire, with Emma, with Lila, I trusted and I was blind. What if I'm blind again?" Maya reached for his hand. "Ethan, I can't erase your past. I can't prove anything with words alone. But I can show you every day that I'm here for the right reasons. You just have to give me the chance." Her calmness cut through his storm. But still, doubt lingered. A few days later, Maya invited Ethan to meet some of her closest friends. It should have been a simple evening, but for Ethan, it was nerve-wracking. Sitting at the table, watching Maya laugh with people she'd known for years, he felt both admiration and unease. Then it happened. One of her friends, a tall guy named Daniel, hugged her goodbye a little too warmly. Ethan's stomach tightened instantly, memories flashing back to his fiancées with their secrets. On the way home, Ethan was quiet, his grip on the steering wheel stiff. Maya noticed. "You're upset." He shook his head, but his voice was clipped. "No, I'm fine." But she wasn't fooled. "Ethan, talk to me." Finally, the words burst out. "Why did he hug you like that? Was it just a friend thing, or is there more? I don't know." The silence that followed was heavy. Maya stared at him, hurt flashing in her eyes. "Ethan, if we're going to work, you have to believe me when I say there's nothing. He's just a friend. If you can't trust me, then what are we doing?" Ethan swallowed hard. Her words cut deep because he knew she was right. The war wasn't between them. It was inside him. That night, he lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Maya had given him no reason to doubt her, yet his scars whispered otherwise. And for the first time, Ethan realized the battle wasn't about love. It was about whether he could let go of his fear long enough to let love grow. The days that followed were tense. Maya didn't pull away, but Ethan could feel the distance. She still called, still showed up, but there was a quiet hurt in her eyes, a reminder that his doubt had left a mark. One evening, after another long silence during dinner, Maya finally set her fork down and looked straight at him. "Ethan, I need to ask you something," she said softly but firmly. He nodded, bracing himself. "Do you actually want this, us? Because I can't keep fighting your ghosts. I can love you, I can stand by you, but I can't keep proving myself every time someone else reminds you of your past." Her words cut deep, sharper than he expected. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Maya's voice trembled now. "I care about you, Ethan, more than I ever thought I could. But if you don't learn to trust me, you're going to lose me. And I don't want to be another ring in your drawer." Ethan's chest tightened painfully. He saw the truth in her words, saw the strength it took for her to say them. That night, after she left, Ethan sat alone at his desk, staring at the 3 velvet boxes. Claire, Emma, Lila. Betrayals had scarred him, yes, but it was his fear that was threatening to ruin the one relationship that had a chance to heal him. He picked up one of the rings, weighing it in his palm. For so long, these had been symbols of failure, but now, as he stared at them, he realized they didn't define him. He did. The next morning, Ethan showed up at Maya's door. She opened it, surprise flickering across her face. He held up the 3 small boxes. "These aren't me anymore," he said, his voice unsteady but resolute. "They're just the past, and I don't want to keep punishing you for what other people did. I don't know how to be perfect, but I want to try. With you, only you." Maya's eyes filled with tears. For a long moment, she just looked at him, searching his face. Then she stepped forward and pulled him into her arms. "You don't need to be perfect," she whispered. "You just need to stay." Ethan closed his eyes, holding her tightly. For the first time, he felt the war inside him quiet. Trust wasn't easy, but maybe, just maybe, it was possible. The crisp autumn air carried with it a quiet chill, the kind that made people crave warmth not just of sweaters and fireplaces, but of arms that promised safety. Ethan stood at the edge of the city park, watching couples stroll hand in hand. Once upon a time, that sight had mocked him, each pair reminding him of the fiancés who had left him broken. Now it felt different. Now he had Maya, and yet the storm inside him hadn't gone away entirely. That week, Claire had returned. Out of nowhere, after months of silence, she appeared in his office lobby like a ghost materializing from the past. "Ethan," she said, her voice as smooth as ever, "I need to talk." He almost laughed. Talk? After everything? But part of him was curious. In the cafe across the street, Claire leaned in, her perfume still the same, her eyes still sharp. "I made a mistake," she whispered. "I chose wrong. I left for money, for security, but none of it mattered. I want us back." Her words stung not because he wanted her, but because they carried the echo of every old wound. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. Maya noticed. She rolled over in bed, her hair spilling across the pillow. "You're somewhere else again," she murmured. Ethan hesitated, then told her the truth, Claire's return. Maya's eyes widened, but she didn't look angry. "Just steady, and what do you want?" she asked quietly. It was the question he'd been avoiding. The next day, as if fate was testing him, Emma called. Her voice shook with regret. "Ethan, I'm sorry. I've lived with guilt every single day. I want to fix things." By the weekend, even Lila had sent a message begging to meet. It was madness. All 3 fiancés crawling back, as though the universe wanted to see just how strong or weak he really was. Maya never demanded an answer. She simply gave him space, though her silence was heavy with unspoken fear. Ethan, meanwhile, stood before his mirror one night, staring at his reflection. The ring sat on the desk behind him, those damned velvet boxes that had haunted his every step. Claire, Emma, Leila, past pain, betrayal. And then Maya, the woman who stayed, who believed, who loved without condition. The choice was clear. But was he strong enough to make it? Sunday evening, he asked Maya to meet him in the same park where they had first truly talked. She came, eyes cautious but hopeful. Ethan took her hands, trembling. Maya, I've been given every chance to fall back into the past. But I don't want it. Not anymore. I'm done letting ghosts rule me. I choose you. Today, tomorrow, always. He opened a small box, not one of the old rings, but a new one, simple, pure, free from history. Maya gasped, tears spilling down her cheeks. Ethan. He sank to one knee, his heart pounding but steady. Will you marry me? Her answer was instant. Yes, 1,000 times yes. And as he slid the ring onto her finger, Ethan finally felt the chains of betrayal break. For the first time, he wasn't surviving his past. He was stepping into his future. The news spread faster than Ethan imagined. Within days of his engagement to Maya, the whispers began. Old acquaintances, colleagues, even distant family members suddenly reached out, curious and surprised. Ethan Blake is engaged again? But the loudest voices came from the past. Claire, Emma, and Leila. Each of them appeared as if unwilling to let go of the man they once threw aside. Claire's confrontation. It was Claire who came first. She barged into his office, her presence as commanding as ever. Ethan, you don't understand. She doesn't know you the way I do. We had history. We had a bond no one can replace. Ethan stood, calm but firm. Claire, you had me, and you let me go. Whatever bond we had, you broke it the day you chose someone else over us. I won't go back. Her eyes glistened with something he couldn't name, anger, regret, or both. You'll regret this, she hissed before storming out. Emma's plea. Emma was different. She met him at a quiet cafe, her hands trembling around her coffee cup. I was scared, Ethan, she whispered. You were too good, too steady. I didn't think I deserved you, so I ran. But I've spent every day since regretting it. Please don't throw us away forever. He studied her face, searching for the sincerity he once believed in. All he felt now was a distant ache. I'm sorry, Emma, he said softly. But the truth is you did throw us away. And I finally found someone who doesn't run. Emma broke down crying, but this time Ethan didn't feel the urge to comfort her. Leila's game. Leila was the last. She arrived with charm and mischief, just as she always had. Come on, Ethan, she teased, her smile sharp. We both know you'll get bored. Maya's sweet, sure, but she doesn't thrill you like I do. Admit it, you miss the chaos. Ethan almost laughed. I used to mistake chaos for love, Lila, but not anymore. What I want now is peace. And that's something you never offered me. For the first time, Lila's mask cracked. Her smile faltered, her confidence slipping. She left without another word. Maya's strength. When Ethan told Maya about these encounters, she listened quietly, her hands wrapped around his. Do you regret telling me? She asked gently. He shook his head. No, I don't want secrets between us. Not anymore. Maya's eyes softened. Then I'll tell you what I see. 3 women who lost something priceless, and a man finally brave enough to stop letting them control his heart. Ethan felt a weight lift. For so long, he'd been defined by betrayal. But with Maya, he was learning to be defined by choice. That night, as they stood on the balcony of his apartment, the city lights twinkling around them, Ethan kissed her hand. They'll try again, he murmured. Let them, Maya replied with quiet strength. Because no matter what, I know where you belong. The church bells rang softly in the distance, their echo carrying across the crisp evening air. The world seemed to pause, as if holding its breath for what was about to unfold. Inside the small chapel, candles glowed warmly, casting light on rows of family and friends. The scent of roses filled the space, delicate and pure, a reminder of fresh beginnings. Ethan stood at the altar, his hands slightly trembling, his heart racing. Not out of fear this time, but out of awe. After everything, after betrayal and heartbreak, he was here, ready. The last test. Just before the ceremony began, Ethan caught sight of three familiar faces at the back of the chapel, Claire. Emma and Lila. They hadn't been invited. Yet there they were, dressed elegantly, their eyes fixed on him. For a heartbeat, doubt threatened to creep in. But then the doors opened, and Maya appeared. She walked down the aisle, her dress flowing like starlight, her eyes never leaving his. Ethan felt every chain of his past shatter in that moment. The three women faded into nothing, like shadows under the rising sun. The vows. When it came time to speak, Ethan's voice was steady, filled with conviction. Maya, I've spent years believing love was fragile, that it would always end in betrayal, but you showed me love isn't about perfection. It's about choosing each other again and again, no matter the fear. Today, I vow to never let my past dictate our future. I vow to trust you, honor you, and walk beside you not just when it's easy, but when it's hardest. You are my choice, my peace, my forever. Maya's eyes glistened with tears as she replied. Ethan, you were broken when I found you, but what you didn't see was how strong you already were. I don't need you to be perfect, I just need you to be you. I vow to stand with you, to remind you of your worth when you forget, and to love you through every storm. You are not your past, Ethan, you are my future. The final moment. The priest blessed their union, and as Ethan slipped the ring onto Maya's finger, a hush fell over the room. The three fiancés shifted uncomfortably at the back, their expressions a mix of regret and resignation. For them, it was the final proof. They no longer had any hold over him. Ethan kissed Maya, and the chapel erupted in applause. But for him, the only sound that mattered was the beat of her heart against his. Epilogue. Weeks later, the velvet boxes were gone donated to a charity shop, their weight lifted from his life forever. In their place sat only one ring, shining on Maya's hand, a symbol not of betrayal, but of a love reborn. And as they sat together on their balcony, watching the sunset paint the sky gold, Ethan whispered, "For the first time, I feel free." Maya leaned her head on his shoulder, smiling. "No, Ethan, for the first time you feel home." And this time he knew it was true.